see them in the back of the room. There are 3 ingredients that have never, ever been injected into human beings ever before, ever. Ever. I can't even pronounce them. I'll try, okay? So one of them is 4-hydroxybutyl anzaldehyde bis hexane 1,6 bis hexyldetonate. Want that in your body? Roll up your sleeve next week. Make an appointment to the front of the line. There's 3 of those in there like that. 3 of them. And if you remember back from high school chemistry, you can have 3 inert ingredients sitting on a bench. Nothing happens. Mix all 3 of them together in a test tube, and the test tube blows up, right? They've never tested even one of these individually in humans. All 3 of them are being injected at the same time. It's a lipid coating on the outside, and it's the same ingredient that they have made the hydrogel from. The hydrogel is the stuff created by BARDA, which is the bad guys at the DOD, to inject in us to bind irreversibly and permanently to our cells as step 1 of entering people into the transhumanism movement. These are the same ingredients. They just don't tell you that. You've got to take that out. And when all 3 of those, and then if you think about this messenger RNA, the messenger RNA is pretty unstable. So they have to put this lipid coating around the outside of it. So think about, you take this messenger RNA with a recipe on it and you put it inside of a golf ball to protect it. Because if the messenger RNA goes immediately into your cells, your body goes, foreign protein, get it out of here. So they encase it in these chemical things that have never been tested before. So that goes into, and then on the outside of that lipid thing, they put a coating of something called polyethylene glycol. That they call it PEG, P-E-G for short. That polyethylene glycol is on the outside of it, and for most of the people that are going into anaphylactic shock, it's probably because they're having a reaction to PEG. Because upwards to 70% of the population is already sensitized to polyethylene glycol. Because that stuff is in everything. Everything. Now, I'm not a big fan of Wikipedia for lots of reasons, but I'll tell you what, if you go to Wikipedia and you put in polyethylene glycol, the list goes on and on all the way down the page. You scroll of how many things that polyethylene glycol is in that we've been sensitized to. So now they're injecting it into us. So now you've been sensitized, it's like a bee sting. You get sensitized. The second one, you get massive, all those rashes that people like taking pictures of and putting them all over the internet, all the anaphylactic stuff, it's the coating on the outside of these shots. So you've got all these chemicals never tested before, polyethylene glycol, and a bunch of other stuff. Next slide. This PEG is what we talked about here. And there's also, inside of the Medina shot, there's 2 prescription medications. 2 prescription medications. One is called tromethamine, and then there's tromethamine hydrochloride, about 50 milligrams total. And those 2 prescription medications are there because they're used to treat metabolic acidosis. So what were they anticipating by injecting this foreign matter with these 3 unknown chemicals of polyethylene glycol that they put prescription medication inside of these shots? Okay, so that's the Medina shot. Next one. So go on. So that's the PEG system. We talked about that a little bit, the sensitization. So, in the presence of it, we've had this massive pre-exposure that I've talked about, these anti-PEG antibodies in the general public. Upwards to 70% of the general public are already pre-sensitized to this chemical that they're going to inject in your body. And they never bother to test you to see whether or not you have an allergic reaction to polyethylene glycol before they inject it. They just do it. Just like these reports that are coming out. Have you guys seen these reports coming out in the last couple of days that talk about all these? There was just one just tonight. I think it was in the Seattle area. 100 people had been injected. I believe it was with the Pfizer shot, and now they test positive for COVID. So 2 things about that. Number 1, did they test them before they got the shot? No. So would they have been positive before? Quite possibly. So we don't know that. The second thing is, did they just find little stray whiskers from Uncle Fred? And what does it mean? Well, we'll just let them run with it, though, because if people start to think I get the shot and I still test positive because they think testing positive means they're sick, well, then we'll just let that confusion ride. next slide. So, next slide. So this is how the J&J shot works.